Welcome, everybody. This is the women's game, and we are live. It is just minutes after the final whistle of the USA versus Japan quarterfinal at the 2024 Paris Olympics, in which the US beat Japan 1-0, thanks to an extra time wonder strike from our hero, Trinity Rodman. The game was incredibly nerve-wracking with Japan's organized and disciplined low block, causing lots of frustration during regular time. And as the game opened up, Japan created some chances, but the U.S. was able to hang on. We scored our goal. We are out of there, and we are moving on to the semifinals. We are going to have the opportunity to compete for an Olympic medal. We're guaranteed 2 more games. So we are here to break down this performance, all the frustrating parts, all the glorious parts. But first, let me introduce my co-host today. I am so excited to introduce 1999 Women's World Cup champion, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and legend. It's Brandi Chastain. Thank you so much.
Come on! First of all, the walk-up music to the show was like so funky and moody. I was like, let's do this thing.
I know. Let's go. It's fun. So this is the women's game, Brandi. I am so happy to have you here today. We're like 2 generations of U.S. women's national team players, a 1999er and a 2019er, and we're here together to revel in, to relive, and to go deep on the journey of this new young generation, this new reincarnation of the U.S. women's national team. We're here to break down the game. Again, we are live just moments after the final whistle. We're reacting in real time. This is a Do It Live. It's presented by our great friends at Olipop, which means you, our listeners, are here with us, and you can ask us questions about football or life. Here's how. Scan the QR code in the top left of your screen. It will take you into a Zoom with our producer who will get you set up to ask your question. It's audio only, so don't be nervous. You're not going to be on screen. We'll get to those questions a little bit later in the broadcast, but go ahead and get in line now to make sure you get yours in there. And for those of you who don't want to ask a question, just do us a favor and give us a like. If you haven't already, do please hit that subscribe button and join us on this channel where we have all of our women's game Olympic coverage dropping around each and every U.S. women's national team game. Turn those notifications on and get an alert every time we go live. I see some of you in the chat already. I'm really excited to be here with you all, but I need to bring Brandi into this because I've been babbling on for long enough. We'll get to your questions in just a few minutes, so let's get into it. Brandi, this was our first knockout round game of this tournament. You and I have both been in these games where it's win or go home. Talk to us a little bit about what that feels like, knowing that your suitcase could be getting packed tonight if you don't get the job done.
Well, I have to tell you, I had a little bit of nervousness happening. I had some butterflies flying around about this game, mainly because I respect Japan and what they have been doing and what they continue to believe is good soccer and how they present themselves, and they're always ready for a big match, and they're disciplined, and they value the game in such a beautiful way. So I was nervous, even though down deep in my soul I knew that the US would win this match. But I think the problem that Japan presented to us was not easily solved. It was not easily solved, and it's not our ethos to play in that manner. And so I think that was very hard for us today.
I really agree. I think when you say it was not in our ethos to play in that manner, do you just mean Japan's disciplined low block takes away some of our natural strengths?
Yes. I mean, look, if you look at the front three, you think about fast and furious, you think about assertive, aggressive, you think about creating chaos, you think about space in behind, and that like space in behind is an added player for the U.S. women's national team on the regular. And so not having that, and so now all of a sudden you're seeing 3 players standing up top, really standing. Then you have Lavelle pushing forward, you have Varane pushing forward, and now you've got 5 players playing against a back line that it reminded me, actually, it threw me back, if I can kind of make a reference to Norway. Norway used to play in this just incredible 4-player. They would move in the same beat. No, and it was incredible. They knew where to be at every moment, and I feel like Japan was like that, and that was difficult initially. And the first half was not spectacular, and Japan actually had the 2 best chances in the first half.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we're going to get more into the details of the first half. I wanted to start with a quick note on our starting lineup today. It was the average age was 27 years old and 163 days. And this is actually the youngest starting 11 for the U.S. women's national team in a knockout match at a major tournament since the quarterfinal versus England in the 2007 World Cup. So, Brandi, I want to talk a little bit about when you were playing. Younger players, I think, were more common. A lot of you all were, I feel like, I don't know exactly your ages, but I feel like there were a lot of young players on the team. What is it like to be newer on the team and get opportunities in a major tournament? What do you think the atmosphere of this team is like with this younger age?
Well, honestly, we just were introduced to this team when the 99ers went to New York, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I can't speak too much in depth, Sam. I'll tell you about them personally, but what I feel about the U.S. national team is I think we all understand and we connect over this idea, which is everybody is necessary to win. Everybody, it doesn't matter if you play 1 minute, 0 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes, you take the final penalty kick, everybody's necessary. And so I feel like there is this open arms to, you get in here, you're here, you belong, and you're going to be called upon in a moment. And so I feel like that we know that. So,
Yeah.
I think they know that. So it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter if you're first cap. I mean, I heard Julie Foudy saying, like, okay, are you going to make a sub that's going to put a player on who doesn't have an international cap to her name? Would we do that? Like, I think every player that comes into that environment has to accept and embrace the confidence of, you were chosen. You're here for the reason. We know you can do it, and you have to believe that. And so, age is a number. I say that because I'm 56 now, and that's what you say when you get old. Age is a number. But honestly, it's about being in the moment. It's about staying together. It's about the game plan and execution. I think at times Japan's execution was slightly better than ours, and you said we'll get into the first half. That's who they are, right? That they are well-oiled, disciplined machine.
Yeah.
And technically they're incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You mentioned, are we going to sub in a player with no caps yet? And I think you're referring to Emily Sams, who was dressed today in replace of Tierna Davidson, who has been injured for the last couple of games, unfortunately for us. Emily Sams is a defender for the Orlando Pride, just having a great NWSL season this year. And she's actually a replacement alternate for Lynn Williams, who took Kat Macario's spot on the roster when Kat got injured. So we had Emily Sams on the bench in place of Tierna. Emily Sonnet started at center back again today. And Brandi, when we talk about Emily Sonnet, we talk about versatile players, Crystal Dunn, another of them. You were an extremely versatile player yourself. I know you played multiple positions during your time with the national team. Talk to us about the mentality of a player who is being asked to play multiple positions. Could you just slot in anywhere at any time? Are you always prepared for that?
Well, to be honest with you, Sam, I would say that I would hope that all of these players understand football, right? And to me, it's not really about a position. It's about a place. Like, where are you on the field? What space are you in? What's the score of the game? It's like understanding the dynamic of a whole total game. And so if I find myself in a defensive position, what are the things I need to do in this moment? If I find myself in a final third moment, what are the things that are being asked of a player in this moment? If I'm in, if I'm in the midfield, I'm a hold-up player as a forward, what do I do? So honestly, I love football. I love soccer. Soccer is my jam. It always has been. I love the small little nuances. And I think part of the nuances of the game is to understand where you are and what is asked for you in that moment, in that position, in that time. And so changing positions wasn't something that I saw coming in my career. But when Tony gave me the opportunity to come back to the national team and play in an outside back role, my choice was this: not be on the team or play that position. And
easy
so
choice.
A very easy choice. But I also had to choose the fact that I was playing between Carla Overbeck and Christine Lilly. And I was like, if I can't do that, then I shouldn't be here anyway. So they made it much easier for me.
Yeah, that makes total sense. A couple other changes we saw today. We were without Sam Coffey, who has been really holding it down for us in that sixth position in the midfield, but she picked up 2 yellow cards in group play, so she was suspended for today's game. And we actually learned, I think this came into play a little bit later in the game, Sam Coffey's absence didn't allow for an alternate replacement player. So the US had to deal with dressing only 17 players. Corbin Albert, who scored a really great goal last game, she slotted into that sixth position. The midfield today and throughout this tournament, they have great moments occasionally, but there have been some uncharacteristic giveaways that we don't usually see from them. Brandi, how have you seen the midfield come together this tournament? I feel like they have gotten notably less praise than the front three and the back line has so far.
Well, they have to be the box-to-box players, right? So they have a lot of space to cover. I mean, listen, everybody understands. Well, if you don't understand, you're going to understand now that the football pitch is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. And you're asking 3 players to moderate, about 80 yards of it and 75 in width.
Sideline to sideline, end to end. And we saw that today from Lindsey Horan, from Rose Lavelle, from Corbin Albert, all over the pitch, both sides of the field, up and down.
Yes. And I would say that they have a great amount of leeway to travel. I mean, you see Horan in every position. You see Lavelle pushing up against the front line. Now, I'm not sure that's how I would have my midfield play with this team. I feel like them in more central roles would be more advantageous because I think they're good with the ball at their feet. They're good passers. They can at time make combinations to get in through the seams, at kind of those half spaces between the 3 channels of the field. But that's not how they do it. And so I think their work is more. And they're spread out a lot. So they don't have a lot of cohesion between the 3 of them. I think that's how it's been working now. And I don't see that changing in this tournament, but maybe in the future with Emma, it could.
Yeah. Did you notice that we were missing Sam Coffey today?
I think Sam's different, right? I think Sam's different than Corbin. I think Sam is a traditional 6. She plays that kind of, I'm going to be the back line in front of the defense kind of position. And I think the game, because Japan sat back, we didn't need that. As it turns out, from my perspective, we didn't need that hold down the midfield person staying in that kind of 6 role.
Like we were a little too conservative for much of the game.
Well, I just think that Japan wasn't creating any problems for us right there. Like, that wasn't the biggest problem that we were having. The biggest problem was we had the ball a lot and we weren't able to break down that back 5.
Yeah. And from that perspective, is sending another number forward the key to breaking down that back 5 then? Do we not need somebody holding the 6? Do we need somebody getting higher?
I honestly think it's about interchange. I think it's about combination play. I think it's about, to me, I wrote down a couple notes, and, one of them is that, football is a game of attraction, deception, and patience. And attraction, in my opinion, is, can I force a defender to come out of their position and then attack the space that they've left? Now, if I move out of the space and the defender doesn't come with me, I'm wide open. So give me the ball. And when she does then come to me, I play around her. So, I think it's understanding those 2 discernible moments that in every position. And I'm not so sure that's what we do. That's not what we do. We kind of press against the line. We press against the line. We make some passes. We get the second ball, and then we make a run at goal in that way. I'd love to see more interchange and more attraction to take advantage of the space that's left.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely a sign that this team is still coming together. This was only Emma Hayes' 8th game coaching this US Women's national team. And I know you've experienced a lot of coaching changes during your career with the national team, and you also have a lot of experience coaching yourself. So, Brandi, how long would you say it takes for a team and a new coach to really gel and find themselves on the same page all the time?
I don't know if I can give you a number on that, to be honest with you, Sam. And I think that's because it's all about the mentality of the players, right? The intellect, the mentality, the capacity for growth, like a growth mindset. I think it's about the players' willingness to be we versus me kind of. And so I think you have a lot of intellectual players. You can gel pretty quickly. I think if you get concepts right away, we can move on to the next complicated thing and complex moment. So I don't think a number, I don't think a game, I don't think, a year. I will say that in 99, we had a lot of time together. So that gave us kind of a chance to, it's like, do you like to cook?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So, for me, like if I'm going to build good flavor and the depth of flavor, it kind of takes some slow patience, right? And so that's how I kind of see it could be like that. It could take some time, but also you have some spices that are just quick hits, right? You got some spice, so it could go both ways.
I love that. We're like a stew and we're coming together, hopefully right at the right time. Okay, let's get into the first half. So right from the start of the game, Japan's defensive organization was really, really good. They were clearly in that like compact 5-back, kind of sitting, playing a low block. We were playing out of the back, but Japan's shape and the way they were pressuring us like patiently without opening up too much space made it really difficult for us to advance up the field and continue maintaining possession. What do you think is key for us in our organized offense when we're up against a low block like that, that's really, really disciplined, really, really organized? What can we do to break down a team like Japan?
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to what I said about attraction, and I'm going to shout out Naomi Girma, not just because she's a San Jose girl like me, but because I think she can really change and dictate and open up a match because she's good with the ball at her feet. I think she has good awareness. When we pass, Julie, again, I'm just going to reiterate something that Julie said in the broadcast, which was at one point Naomi had the most amount of passes, 105 passes. To me, that's a terrible stat because what it says to me is we went sideways a lot. We went sideways, we went backwards, and so that number is not really that meaningful. The more meaningful stat would be how many times did she penetrate and break the line of the opponent? How many lines could she break with one pass? And I think Naomi, if she dribbles just forward just a little bit to attract, we can bypass that 3 midfield, hit a forward, play a midfielder that's facing forward. Now she can play from a higher position.
This is actually my next question for you, and something that we spoke about a lot when I played was how do we get our midfielders and our attacking players on the ball faced up? Like, I think what happens when you have players checking to your center backs who are on the ball is now we have Rose Lavelle receiving the ball, but she's facing backwards. And if she can create some space, maybe dribble backwards and turn herself around, sure. But imagine if we could lay the ball off to Rose as she's running forward full speed. And so what I was actually seeing in that first half was a lot of space opening up high and wide as Japan's 5-back would start to get pulled out. Space behind those wide players would open up. And I would have loved to see have a player like Roosevelt running through from central out wide to get a ball around the corner, maybe having somebody check inside and try to like get into utilize that space. Sophia Smith could have made that run out wide. Trinity Rodman could have made that run in, getting the ball behind the back line or laying it off to Rose and having her then have it faced up. How, if you were going to like plan out a passing pattern, if you were going to show the players on a board what to do, how do you set that up to get Rose on the ball facing forward?
Well, I think first what we have to analyze, Sam, is what's our numbers in these, whether it's the channels like you're asking, these wide channels, or whether it's in the like a center block, which is, where do we sit numbers wise? Are we superior? Are we even? Are we inferior? And where we can become superior is where we can now say, okay, now we can do this attraction, right? We can create the defense to make a choice. Right now, they weren't in indecision. They could stay in their block. They're very comfortable. We weren't threatening them with any kind of movement that created any kind of decision making. They stood right where they were. So we have to attract, and that's why I'm going to start with the back line because they have to instigate some sort of movement from the defense. And as soon as that first penetrative dribble happens, Rose can open up, the forward can come in, the ball can go in, back, Rose is running through, and the ball goes in.
Because Naomi dribbling forward forces a player to step out, which should open up some space in behind.
Yes. And we're talking about getting a ball to a third or fourth runner, not the first or second. And I feel like sometimes we stop too soon, and we don't allow things to marinate, properly. And
let's keep coming back to this reference. I love it. It's a stew. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, Brandi, but I'm so curious. If you were coaching a team against the US, would you play a low block?
That's a good question. I think, this game is also about risk reward, right? So what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to risk? And what tools do you have to strike against the opponent, and where can you find your rewards? And I think what I probably would do is I probably wouldn't play 5 in the back, only because I think there's enough speed on these international teams to make up space, and to cover each other. I would put more of our players in the midfield, and therefore make the US make a decision. Do we keep our players central, or do we allow them to continue to go out and be in these kind of esoteric spaces that they get into? And do we punish them by playing in the middle a little bit more? And when we do that, does that cause one of their central backs to come into the midfield to defend? And let's see what happens in that chess match.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad Brandi is not coaching against us. Okay, so something else we've talked a lot about throughout this tournament is fatigue. So this is the US, everybody's 4th game in 10 days. We've seen very few roster changes, very few rotations in the starting lineup. Japan obviously has played the same amount of games. But I think, and you mentioned this a little at the beginning, Brandi, one of the trademarks of this US team, it's like we're high octane all the time. High press, max speed and transition. We're go, go, go. We're high energy, sprinting all over the place. And that's kind of what we look for when we try to identify if this team is playing well or being successful. Brandi, so coupled with this is a major tournament, so there's all these added stressors that come with that. It's trying to see your family, experiencing being at the Olympics, you're doing media, you're traveling. How exhausting is this for these players on top of playing 4 games in 10 days? Do you think we should have seen some rotation in that game against Australia?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to go to the bottom common denominator, Sam. You have to earn points. So that each game you must earn points. And so, nobody can look at Emma and say, hey, you didn't earn points.
Because here we are in the semifinal.
Here we are. But there is a nuance to, how do you manage a full tournament like Olympics in a short period of time? And so that's where the secret sauce is. Here we go, secret sauce, right? The secret sauce is knowing your players. She hasn't had a lot of time with these players, so is what we've seen circumstantial because she doesn't know them enough, but she knows that this group is, solid and can get a result. And we don't know about the others. Are those X factors? And they don't have a lot of experience. So, I think as let's go to the game where Sam got the yellow card that now takes her out of this quarterfinal, because the game would be a little bit different, I think, than it was today if she were in the match. I questioned whether or not she should have been playing when you're up. And why are we going to get a yellow card? Let's protect that. So I think in those circumstances, maybe, but that's a in the moment decision. That's like things are going well. Why should we mess with things? I mean, I think there's a continuity that players ask for, they crave. And of course, there's a craving by the players that are sitting on the sideline, just dying to get into the game because they want to be a part of that. And so I think there's room for both to happen. and you do have to be strategic, but we can't fault anything right now. We're in the semifinal.
True. Exactly. I mean, regardless of tired legs, regardless of it being a close game today, we won. We are in the semifinal. If I'm sure we'll continue to question this decision, and if things continue to go well, it will fall by the wayside. But I agree with you. I think it's nuanced, and it's a decision that Emma made that has put us competing for an Olympic medal. So we'll see what happens. Another thing I noticed in the first half, we looked most dangerous, obviously, in moments of transition when Japan would have some possession in our end or have their own chance and we'd break out. I almost like wanted us to try to engineer those opportunities more often, which of course doesn't really make sense. You can't really like give Japan a chance or give them possession in our half on purpose. But the few times that we broke free, Mal Swanson and Sophia Smith dribbling up the field, the chances weren't really on target. Trinity actually wasn't as involved, perhaps because Japan's low block was really effective, and even maybe partly because we do tend, I feel, to play a little bit more regularly up the left-hand side of the field as Crystal Dunn rotates high. But this is where I really started thinking about set pieces again. And I've been harping about set pieces this whole tournament. When I think back on our 2019 World Cup, we scored so many of our goals that won us games off of set pieces, in large part thanks to Megan Rapinoe. And when you're struggling to break down a low block like Japan was playing today, one of the tools you have is creating chances off set pieces. They're a moment that you can really set up for. And the low block isn't effective against a set piece. Do you think we have scored last game, the Trinity Rodman's goal was off of a corner kick. It was kind of a deflection scrum in the box. Have you seen a drop off in our set pieces? And do you think, is this maybe something the team hasn't like had time to work on as much yet, considering it's only Emma's 8th game?
This is a great topic. I love set pieces, and I think they're extremely valuable because to me, it's one of the 5 pillars of what we coach, right? We coach attacking to defending to attack, and set pieces, dead balls. And I think dead balls are more of a nuancy kind of feel good, like what's the vibe? Like, you need players who look at each other and you're like, yeah, I see that too. I don't necessarily think we have that. Honestly, that's kind of, I think this is, if there are any minuses against this team, I think that's one of them. They're not nuanced in these, like Japan plays a short pass through one runs. Like they have corner kicks that have a lot of combinations and movement, and minus the last one they played, which was terrible, by the way, in the waning moments of the game. It's like, this was your worst corner kick you've ever done. Yeah, I think, we've been so programmed to just play the long ball. But I will say in this match against Japan, if I looked at ourselves stacked up against them, we're superior in heading the ball and winning the ball in these moments. We should have probably done a few more, maybe play it short, stop it, cross it in. Get them to move just a little bit, create a little bit of space and separation from the defender, play the ball in. I think we can utilize set pieces and make them more effective. And I hope that they can. Can they do it by the end of this tournament? I don't know. But in those moments, I think it's a lot of heart and a lot of assertiveness that make the difference. And we have that in spades.
Yeah, definitely. We did have one later on in the game. We're technically still talking about the first half here, but where we played it short, Mal got around and dribbled herself in and shot. It was probably our best one. But I agree with you that it's an area to work on for sure, especially now moving forward in the tournament.
And you know where that came from? That came from the fact that we're using the men's free kick specialist, and that's how Christian Pulisic scored in Copa America. And everyone's like, hey, we have a new free kick specialist. Like, Christian couldn't have done that without this guy, whatever his name is, I don't know. But that was like that.
Okay, so near the end of the first half, Japan created a few chances. Tanaka turned really well in the box around Lindsay Horan, got off a shot. It was blocked by Alyssa Nair. And then there was this other weird play where our backline got kind of pulled out of shape. The ball ended up far post for a really clear volley, despite Crystal Dunn's, thank God she got a touch to it, but it still ended up, Japan got a shot off. Unfortunately for us, it went over. The game was it felt closer than I expected it to be. I think so far in all of our games, I've had this really clear sense like, yeah, we're obviously going to win. We're obviously going to score. It felt like there was a big gap between us and the other teams. And I thought I was still going to have that for much of this game. And I always had faith, but it did feel really, really close. We didn't seem to have a ton of momentum in that first half, a ton of chances. Japan's low block, their organization, their work rate was just so effective. Brandi, what were you feeling in the first half? Did you feel like we had it, or were you kind of like, I don't know?
No, I felt like everybody was holding their breath, like
Yeah.
we're trying to feel each other out. We're trying to get a sense of, okay, what are you going to bring at us? What are we going to bring to you? And I think, I watched the backs a lot at this time of my life, just seeing like their impact on the attacking side of the game. And so when you see a player with the ball at her feet and she's putting her hands up like, hey, somebody do something.
Like I have no options.
Yeah, you're not feeling your most comfortable. So I felt like that's how it was a little bit. And I think like at the end of the match, it was similar to at the beginning of this match, which is nobody wants to make a mistake. Right? You don't want to make a mistake at the beginning, As a coach, I would break the first half down. We talk about the first 5 minutes. Then we talk about, okay, then what can we do in the next 10 minutes? Like if they present the same thing they presented to us in the first 5 minutes, we haven't taken any risk in the first 5 minutes. We've given nothing up. We don't take chances. Sometimes we'll clear the ball if we have to. It's fine. Reset, regroup. But in the next 10 minutes, let's see if we can pull them out of this shape that they want to be in. And if we can, then we can be a little bit more aggressive. And I just didn't see that. Like I saw just still conservative. We're going to keep the ball. We're going to make 105 passes around the back. And we're not really sure how to break down this low block when they're sitting, 10 yards outside of their penalty box, right?
Yeah.
So I think everybody was kind of holding their breath. Nobody wanted to make a mistake, but Japan did get in a couple times, and that's all they wanted. They don't need or want 20 shots. Like I think we feel we want 20 shots, right? We want 20 shots. We want to get in for 20 shots, but maybe those 20 shots are really 10 decent shots with 5 really good shots. And maybe we need to work more for only 10 shots, but 7 being really good, as opposed to just firing away.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that, especially coming off those send-off games where we had so many shots and so many chances and not a lot of scoring from that. I do want to, spoiler alert, tell everybody Colombia is beating Spain 2-0 in 52 minutes in, which is not what I expected. So we're going to see what happens. We'll keep you posted on the rest of that game. Brandi, as a coach yourself going into halftime, what message would you have given the US team? Are you trying to convey a feeling of just trust the process, what we're doing will work, keep possession, break them down? Or were there major changes needed? Like what message would you have given?
I think the message right away was we are exactly where we need to be. We've got them on the ropes, full confidence. I believe in what you're doing. I think as a coach, you have to make sure your players feel inspired and encouraged and believe in the fact that they've got it. So that's necessary, I think. But then on the pragmatic side, it's like, okay, here's what they are presenting. Here are 2 ways, possibly maybe 3, where we can really break them down, where I've seen that we've created some space, and this is what we can do. So I think that also gives the players confidence that the coach understands what's happening in the game and sees something that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've been asking difficult questions, almost like harping so much on the things we were lacking in this game. And I do think it's because I had the sense during regular time of kind of like frustration, kind of like an impatience. Why are we not getting 20 chances? Why are we not getting 20 shots on goal? So I felt that. And I think I want to address some of those feelings, but I also want to convey the longer the game goes on scoreless, those emotions that we feel as fans and that the players feel when they miss a shot or there's no option or they miss a pass, those emotions kind of like magnify, and they get more and more intense as you start getting into the 70th minute, the 80th minute. We still haven't scored. Are we going to lose? What's happening? Why are we not scoring? Why are we not getting shots on goal? So I wanted to ask you, Brandi, to talk a little bit about the pressure building as the scoreboard reads 0-0. We know this is a knockout game. We stayed patient, but a little bit of frustration, maybe a little bit of pressure building started to show. How does that feel as a player as the time is ticking by?
Well, I think one thing that mitigates that to some degree, Sam, is just the connection that players have between each other, right? If you can communicate with one another, you encourage one another. It's not false encouragement. It's not like, hey, you'll get it next time. It's not that kind of thing. It's like, I got you. I'm here. Let's go. We've got this. Remember. And I think that goes a long way. And it feels maybe superficial, but it really seeps down into like, okay, I know that Carla's going to be there all the time. I know that I can always look up and find Christine. She's going to be in this position. So that gives me security. I think when it goes quiet, that's probably the hardest time.
Yeah.
That's the hardest time. And so if you see a reluctance of players to communicate, that's a big problem. If that's happening, okay, they're still together. They're still working through the issues. And you know what? Why do we play this game anyway, Sam? We play this because we want to challenge. We want to compete. We want to find out how good we are. Who wants to play a team that doesn't have all their best players? At the end of the game, you don't know how good you are. You want to play the best. You want to be challenged at the utmost. I mean, we're in the Olympics, for God's sakes. This is the Olympics. So
this is the moment we've been waiting for and waiting for. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I actually had a sports psych tell me one time, when it gets that moment you talk about, when it gets quiet and when players kind of aren't looking at each other in the eye, I think individually too, that feels really isolating. And so it's actually better for your confidence to get outside yourself in those moments and like go give somebody a high five and cheer somebody on. Like, instead of being frustrated or mad or staying in your own head, connecting with somebody outside yourself is actually the thing that will help you play better. And I always found that to be really true.
Science says that if you have gratitude and you're helping other people, happiness comes. Like that's absolutely proven. And so what we want to find on the field is this joy, right? This freedom to do the things that we love and to do them with the players that we've been working so hard with. I mean, Sam, those days on the practice field, which I absolutely ate up. Like it was I love ice cream, and I want ice cream every day, and I loved practice every day. Like I love it. And so, we want our players to feel that way. And so it's necessary. Like, I mean, as humans, we need connection. Like that's really important. And so having someone's back is just boosts up the endorphins. It makes you feel good. And it makes you feel like you can do anything. And I really believe that this team is showing that kind of connection to each other.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're getting to the point in the game now when maybe there are these little energy dips. We started looking a little tired at some point in the second half. These players have played a ton of minutes. It's hot. It's summertime. It's heightened. And I heard on the broadcast that Emma did this on purpose. She wanted this starting group to get as many minutes together as possible. So it was all like planned and thought out. They have had limited time with Emma, limited time together as a starting 11. So this tournament has been another opportunity for them to get reps together. But I thought eventually the game was calling for some substitutions. There was some frustration at some missed chances. There were a couple sloppy touches. The game was getting a little bit more open, and these players are just being asked so much physically. So Brandi, I'm interested to hear, if you would have made any different subs any sooner, what changes would you have made and when?
Yeah, good question. Hard question. Not being in camp and not feeling the energy or the comfort level but I think through our screen, of course we see a little lethargy only because of the amount of time that they've played and in such a condensed period. I honestly, I thought a Croy Bethune would have been a very interesting go-to move, only because I think she sits in those pockets. She's a good passer. She's shown herself to be a good finisher also in the NWSL. She's new to the team. I get it. But honestly, she's got some swagger to her at this point right now that could have been really fun to watch. For me, entertaining, also effective. I think she would have suited the type of game that it was, because it wasn't run all over the place. It wasn't defend hard from sideline to sideline. It was like do things in small little pockets. Like that could have been a really fun sub.
I know. Interestingly, she was back on the alternates list today because Jaden Shaw is back healthy, but we didn't see Jaden Shaw.
And Jaden would have been another interesting one, because she sits also in a pocket in between the back line that was really going to play in its position and the midfield that was having to do some work. And, you know, that could have caused the indecision that we talked about earlier, you know. But I'm not gonna question Emma. I mean, honestly, in this point, like she's had to make decisions about some players. I'm not so sure I would have started the lineup she started, but there you go.
Yeah, so far in Emma we trust. We all hail Emma. I'm with you on that. I do have a specific question about, we talked a little bit earlier about how we had so much possession around the back. Naomi Girma had so many passes. At full time, we saw a stat that Sophia Smith had like really few touches, the fewest on the team besides Alyssa Nair. And there was this incredible piece of media shown on Twitter, I think by Paul Carr. We're going to put it in the chat so everybody can pull it up and see it, where there was just a lot of green around about midfield of all of our completed passes. They had green arrows, and our whole middle and back of the field, you can just imagine the back line and the midfield line completing passes like this around the middle of the field. And up higher in our final third, there were just very sporadic red arrows, showing that higher up the field, we just weren't completing those passes. We didn't have the ball there. That obviously leads to very few touches for our 9, which I'm interested. I think, yes, of course, that's the hardest place on the field to keep possession of the ball, is right around Japan's back 5, where it's really crowded, where they just have to get rid of it in front of their goal. So I'm wondering if this is a problem. Is Sophia Smith getting so few touches an issue? Or is that just what happens when you're playing against a low block? Why would we force the ball to her feet in those positions?
Well, I think Pep Guardiola gets asked this question a lot about Erling Haaland. Here's a player that doesn't touch the ball many times and will score 2 goals in a game. So, you know, it depends on how you look at it. You know, he's a player that obviously can change a game like that. Sophia Smith also is a player that can change a game like that. So you have to play against what's being presented. You don't get to say, okay, Sophia Smith is going to touch the ball 30 times or 100 times. You can't say that before the game starts.
Right.
You don't know how they're going to present a back line or a defensive front. I mean, what if they put a player in front of her and a player behind her? What are you going to do? Like, you're going to have to solve problems in the game. Like how, and I feel like that's something that we need growing into. Like this team, you said this is the youngest team since 2012,
2007 in a major tournament. Yeah.
So, you know, this is a team that has not yet had to answer a lot of questions in the run of play, or gets the possession a lot and now all of a sudden has to manipulate the opponent to create pockets of space or opportunities. And so they're on a steep learning curve right now. And so I don't think it's something to be like, oh my gosh, the house is on fire. We have to jump. You know, that's not where we are. We're not in that. But I think she does have to sit down with Sophia Smith. I think she does have to sit down with the back line together and say, listen, here we are. We have the ball a lot here. How are we going to find her in places where she can play, where she can then grow her confidence, and then we can allow her to be herself in the final third, getting goals. I would also say, though, in that conversation that Emma and, you know, her assistants will have with her, maybe solo, will be, technically you have to be better. You have to be better in finishing. Like what surface you're choosing, what part of the goal you're choosing, you know, It's not always blasted as hard as you can. It's, you know, it's not always dribble. It's going to be a multitude of things. So we need to be better, and that's okay. That's not a knock. We know you have room for that. So that's a great challenge.
Yeah, it actually shows a lot of faith in the players that we expect so much and want more refined touches and decisions in that final third. So we head into extra time looking pretty tired. Lynn Williams takes the field, brings the promise of some added energy out there. She subbed on for Mal Swanson. Despite this game feeling difficult, I still was like, we're going to find a way to win. I don't really think we're going to go into PKs. I just had this feeling that we still had something in us in the run of play. And that brings us to the Olipop moment of the match just before the end of the first 15 minutes of extra time. We were blessed with an incredible goal by Trinity Rodman.
Yeah.
She received a diagonal ball from Crystal Dunn down the right-hand side of the box, took a touch forward, cuts it back to her left foot, and then beautifully shoots it upper 90, far post, a beautiful finish. And the joy with like a little bit of surprise on her face gave me chills in the moment to see her react to scoring such a beautiful goal in such a huge moment in her career for this team's Olympics. I feel like it was a moment where doubt may have crept in. When you're exhausted, it's so hard to keep up this, like, I believe we can do it. And so if there's that little bit of doubt creeping in, to score a goal like this in this moment just sets us up to get through the rest of the game. Brandi, can you imagine the relief that Trinity and the rest of the team felt in this moment?
I can. I lived through the relief of something like that. But what I want to say first and foremost is that you have to give a lot of credit to Trinity, who I think at times, you know, like I've given her, she's like the Fast and Furious, right? It's like go, 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 cause chaos. She's very physical. She gets into the box a lot, and she's going to score a hard goal. She just had missed an opportunity just like the one she scored right before. So the confidence to go back to it and to give it another try, I think is really, it speaks volumes, like to anybody out there who's coaching kids, or if there's any kids that are listening to this, like, you're going to make some mistakes, but you're going to have to try it again, and you're going to go back to it. And she got it right the second time. And so I think that's phenomenal. And, you know, again, like I look at it from both sides. I look at it from her side, saying she took action. She was confident, and she made the move. She set the defender up, and she made the move, and she struck the ball well. Phenomenal. Like, yes, exciting. Like, yeah, we're jumping all over the place. And then I think, okay, if I were coaching the other team, what would I have done? How could I have set my team up to be more successful in that moment? And, you know, what happened with Japan is their five didn't have a player close enough to the first defender, and therefore allowing the space for Trinity to take that shot. And so those are the small little details that the U.S. will have to take going forward that will allow them to continue on in this journey towards gold medal. The details will always matter.
Definitely. I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat really excited about Trinity's goal. Noah Schwartz says power of the pink hair, which I love. I said that early on. If you show up at a major world tournament with pink hair, I think it's good luck. And then we have Melissa saying, I'm so happy for Trin scoring goals. I love the chat. We also have just in from ESPN correspondent Sam Borden's Twitter, what Trinity said after the game about that goal. She said, I kind of blacked out. That's the best moment in my career. The last thing I remember is Crystal playing it. And then I was just like, So 15 minutes left to play. It's all about survival, defensive organization, everything safe, no risks at the back. And for Japan, they needed to really like let it go, send everyone going for it. Jenna Neiswanger subbed in. Jenna brought some fresh legs to try to get some pressure on the ball. And sometimes in moments like this, Brandi, I feel like you really just have to suffer more than your opponent suffers. And I think we did that today. We gutted our way through this game. We scored the goal that we needed. Do you think that suffering, like we can get through anything, is that representative of the mentality of this U.S. team, like just resilient above all?
I think it's representative to championship teams. I hear football pundits talk a lot about suffering. The team has to suffer, and you're going to suffer in this match. And like, I think that is part and parcel to participating at the highest level. Like, there is going to be discomfort. There's going to be times when it doesn't go your way, or it's not in your control in the moment, and you have to stay resolute. You know, you have to be mindful all the time. And I think that is as much as we see players go down with cramps, like brains are like, you have to keep your brain in the game, and that is hard. You have to have practice on positive self-talk, on,
Yep.
how do you manage 120 minutes against an elite opponent. That is not easy. So I think, yes, we can call it suffering, because it's going to be hard. But again, that is the outcome, the reward on the other end. We know what that's like, right? We use training as an example, and we hope that we can create, as coaches, we hope we can create environments that push our players to their maximum physical but also mental capacity, so that when they are faced with it, they're not going to be like, oh my God, I can't do this.
Right.
Like, so,
right.
Again, we go back to, she's not been with our team very long. But I think she will understand. She understands that, and I think that is something that will be important as we go forward. It's as mental as it is physical.
Totally. Well, mental and physical, this game took so much out of us, like energy wise. So I want to talk about that physically, emotionally. The US team has to play again on Tuesday. And it kind of sucks that this was the quarterfinal, just because this was so draining. I feel like a couple of knocks got picked up. We saw poor Emily Fox, who held it out all game, limping off the field at the end, which none of us wanted to see. And then just thinking about all these players who have played so many games, this takes a huge toll on the legs. We're looking towards the semifinal. We have 2 days to rest. Brandi, do you think this game will serve as a disadvantage physically, or do you actually think like winning on an emotional high like this could allow us to ride on that momentum a little bit?
I think there's a lot of recovery in winning in a game like this. Like, there's, you get off of it and then you're like, okay, we did that. We did that. And so that does allow for some of the lack of better tiredness to kind of be alleviated, right? We've kind of taken the balloon and we've gone like this, and it's like, like, okay, we let go of that pressure, right? Yep. We let go of the pressure. But there is a physical toll that that will be taken on all of us. And that will also be the same as our opponent, whether it's the minutes played, it doesn't really matter. They're playing the same matches.
Right.
I think who do we have next now? It could be
winner
either
of Canada, Germany.
Right. So now, we have history with both of those teams, and we know them very well. We've had a successful game against one of them very recently. And that also can give us a little bit of a like, I can breathe in that game. Now, that's not to take them lightly. We know both teams are quite capable. And I think under the circumstances, one will want redemption because they did not play well. And the other one is having to face a situation with their coach that was out of their control, and they had to really fight back to get into the next round, right? And so we have two teams that could be like, they've been caged, or they've been kind of done in, and they're fighting now.
Yeah.
And that's a tough opponent to play against.
For sure.
But semifinals are never against teams that are like, so happy to be here. We don't care what happens.
I know. It's so true. So I've had some of my hardest games ever in semifinals, like England at the 2019 World Cup, and then at the Tokyo Olympics, we lost to Canada in the semifinal. I'm going to mention that again in a little bit. I just want to take a quick moment. We're about to get to everybody's questions. But I want to give Japan some flowers here. Yeah. Organized, disciplined, clean. What I liked most about them today actually was their ability to transition forward, but then hold the ball up as well. Like, they can transition forward quickly, but if it's 1 against 3, it's not really going to work. So they would hold on to that ball, wait for more numbers to join them, and then connect that next pass. Sometimes, just in comparison, our forwards are so good 1v1 that when we transition, they just go. And we should do that. That's like such an incredible threat that we have. But Japan plays a little bit differently. They retain possession in those moments of transition. They bring numbers forward, and then they start their attack together. I thought that was pretty effective for them today. I think they had a good tournament. They'll obviously be disappointed to lose in the quarterfinal, but ultimate respect to them for a really, really difficult game that they showed us today. And Brandi, I just wanted to give you a minute to tell us what you saw from Japan this tournament.
Yeah, I have always been a fan of Japan. I was on the '91 World Cup team, then I was cut from the team, and in between that and coming back to the national team, I went and played in Japan for a year. And so I have the utmost respect for the players, the type of football they play. I learned a lot about how they, their culture, how their culture seeps into their game is about honor. It's about respect. It's about playing tidy football in tight spaces. They live in very populated areas, so space is a premium, and you have to learn how to manipulate small spaces, and they did that against us. To your comment, they're constantly putting their body between the ball and the defender in a way that just makes it impossible to take the ball off of them. They understand that they have to be together, that they work better in numbers, and so they work really hard to support one another. And so I value what they've brought to the women's game so much, and I'm forever indebted to having an opportunity to play professional soccer for the first time in Japan, and what that meant to my career. And so it is hard to see them go, because they really bring such great respect and honor to the game. But that also is indicative of where our game is going and how much it's growing, and that we need Spain and Colombia and Canada and Germany and Japan and the US and Brazil and everybody else, and Africa. I mean, Nigeria, Zambia. We need these teams to continue to grow, and we need their federations to continue to do the right thing and support women's soccer. And we need FIFA to mandate that happens. It can't not be done. And that is, I've taken this question offline, so to speak.
I love it.
But it is absolutely critical to the growth of our game.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Brandi. We've reached the part of the show where we get to hear from you all, our listeners. I have been loving reading the chat from you all, but now you can call in and join us live on YouTube. Scan the QR code in the top left of your screen, or click the pinned comment in the chat. That will take you into a Zoom with our producer, who can tell you everything you need to know. You're not going to be on screen if you don't want to ask a question. Just give us a like. It helps us more than you know. Okay, on to the questions. When I call out your name, remember to take yourself off mute and then tell us where you're from and ask us your question. First question is from Lauren. Lauren, can you take yourself off mute?
Hi, my name is Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh
I'm here with my sister. We're huge fans. We love tuning into your analysis and your insights here after and before all the games.
Thank you.
My question is about physical paper notes being passed onto the soccer field. Obviously, we saw that pass note to Soph Smith today, and there was a similar situation in the Angel City game a couple nights ago when Kristen Press came in, for her big return, which was awesome. And this is the first we've really noticed it. So my question is, what kind of information would be passed along in this format? And if it's new, or if it's always been happening and we just didn't see it before.
That's a really great question. So we did see a physical paper note get passed onto the field today. Emma passed it to somebody, and it got passed to Lindsey Horan. What kind of information would be on there, Brandi?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say I love this because I love write a good handwritten note. I'm going to send you one through the mail, Sam, because I think there's nothing like it. So that's old school. I have my pen and my paper right here. So that kind of made me feel good. I think because they haven't been together for so long, they don't have, there's so many things that you have to talk about and get ready for in matches like this, that maybe something like a slight formation change, or an area on the field where we need to maybe get into more, to me seems like something that could be passed along, probably could have been said. But these stadiums are so loud that sometimes you don't want to miss the message, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to miss the message. But I think it's probably something about whether is it high pressure, low pressure, it's a formation change, or a person, one player's change in doing one specific thing. Maybe that
Yeah.
in that moment.
Yeah. I got a note one time when I played for the North Carolina Courage, and I like couldn't, I think it had like a new formation on it, but it just had names in like a shape. Or you know what it had? It had X's in a shape.
It was origami.
And it was, and well, it literally was like X's in a shape, and I couldn't figure out literally which way it went. So, because it was like probably like a 3-4-3. And so when I turned it upside down, it was this, and I could not figure it out that I just ran over to the sideline and I was like, what? Lauren. So it was probably information like that, like a formation or one tactical kind of make sure we're getting somebody high or make sure we, I don't know, are sitting back and clogging up these spaces. But to Brandi's point, it's usually just when the coach can't deliver the message all the way across the field because it's loud or whatever. But really great question, Lauren. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Lindsay. Lindsay, can you take yourself off mute and tell us where you're from?
I definitely can. Hey there. This is Lindsay originally from New York and now residing in Washington, D.C. So great to be on with you both. Thank you so much for allowing my question. This is a combination I didn't know I needed of cooking metaphor and soccer analysis and coaching.
You're welcome.
So
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Filling a niche unknown spot that I needed. So 2 quick questions. First is a fun one. Brandi, if you could play with any 19er or 24er, obviously not including Sam.
Forget it.
Sam, same question. But
Sam or
Brandi
nobody.
and the 99ers.
And not including Brandi. Okay. All right.
Gosh.
Yeah, not including Brandi.
I'm going to say Naomi Girma. She played in my club. I coached her for a very small time. She's from my hometown. She went to the high school that my parents went to. So I feel this kind of connection to her. I think we would have a lot of fun destroying the opponent together, right? Like we would have side looks. We'd be like, check this out. We do some things and we'd have some fun. And that would be fun. But there's a lot of players that I would love to play with, but she comes to mind first.
Yeah. If I couldn't pick Brandi, I feel like I have to just be myself and pick Mia Hamm. I feel like I have made my fandom for Mia Hamm known over the last couple of years. I had her jersey when I was growing up. She's just one of my heroes. And I feel like trying to slot her through balls for her to run onto and score would have just been really, really incredible. But I really loved that question. Thank you so much for calling in, Lindsay. That was really great.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I'll just end with you, Sam, and Becky in the pregame podcast talked about this feeling of inevitability with this team. And I'm wondering if after today's performance, you still, and Brandi can chime in too, still feel this feeling of inevitability going all the way.
I love that. And honestly, I actually think I feel it more. And I know we've talked and we spent a lot of time on this show talking about some of the issues today. Talking about how the low block was so effective, talking about how we didn't like have that many quality chances, talking about some gaps, like, and despite all of that, despite some injuries, some things that have happened, like scoring in extra time and the feeling that we got from that, like the team will feel we're gonna win. It's inevitable. Like we have the magic, we have that thing that we need. So I would say I actually feel it even more. Brandi, what do you think?
I think that's a dangerous position to hold. I understand the emotion and the feeling behind that, but you still have to carry the same respect of the opponent into the match because you make one mistake and they will punish you. And so I believe what you're saying is true. The players will feel elevated. They will feel like they've got something going on. And that is important. It's critical, but it also is extremely, I say caution, tread lightly. Probably the biggest deterrent can be thinking that you've won something when you haven't yet.
True. That is a really good point, and a note of caution from Brandi, which I will take to heart. Lindsay, thank you so much for calling in. We're going to take one more question before we let everybody get to the end of the Spain-Colombia game, which is now 2-1. Jenny Hermoso scored for Spain. So one more question from Kristen. Take yourself off mute and tell us where you're from.
Hey guys, it's Kristen. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I've gotten to see both of y'all play live before in my lifetime, so I'm a huge fan. It is so cool to be talking to y'all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, totally. Okay, I know y'all have talked a bit about fatigue already, but I'm just wondering, is it even like humanly possible to recover before the next game to like look good? And practically, what does recovery look like? Is it just like ice baths on ice baths? Or can you peel back the curtain a little bit on that?
Yeah, we definitely can. I would say the first two things that are vital are eating and sleeping. I would let these players eat and sleep as much as they possibly can in the next 48 hours. I think those are the two most effective recovery methods. It's tough to get back to 100 at this point. It's their fifth game in what will be 13 days. But they've got to keep dipping and climbing as much as they can. Brandi, what other kind of recovery methods would you think they'd be doing?
Yeah, I think, nutrition obviously is a massive hydration, a massive, we didn't do ice baths back in the day. Massage therapy was like our jam. We love that. Getting in the pool workout, like post game, like just stretching and things in the pool. I guess that was kind of our semi ice bath kind of thing that we did. But massage therapy, I think, nutrition was the biggest one. And we didn't really have great nutrition back then in terms of like options. So that I think now we've really got things dialed in that way. Sleep obviously is a big one. I'm big on sleep, and we can talk about why later, maybe on another podcast.
I would love that.
Everybody needs to put their head down on a great pillow. We'll talk about it later. But I think also just chilling with your besties, right? Like, I mean, gosh, Julie would come into the room and she is like hyper as hyper can be all the time. And you're like, take it down a notch. And then you're like, she can't. So just be yourself, the game, these players have been building, like they're building a foundation that they're going to play on going forward. And, they're practice veterans. And so, yes, it's a lot that we demand of them. Yes, it's a lot that they've already had to play through this year. It's a lot of games. But that also gives them the foundation to play these hard matches on. So they are practiced in this. And so I feel like that is something that they will actually use to their benefit. When you work hard in training and you work hard in the games, you kind of all of a sudden build this armor, like we could do anything. Yeah. And so I think that is something that you grow into and you learn. I see somebody writing cryotherapy. If that means like freezing my body until game time, okay.
I think that's exactly what it means. And I'm sure these US players are doing anything and everything that they can to recover for the next game. And I like what you said, Brandi, like at this point, it's do or die. And so it's kind of this mentality of like, I've just got to get to my best for 90 minutes and whatever I lack physically, I'm going to make up for in spirit and with my emotion and with my tenacity of play. And I think that's what these major world tournaments really ask of these players. These questions
and I think Sam also, this will be now we're getting to the part where the coaching matters, right? The coach's decisions. When will those changes come and who will those changes be and how soon will they come in the match? And so I think this will be the first real test, in my opinion, for Emma Hayes, because she's going to have to make decisions about how do I maneuver through a team that's played four really tough, intense matches, and we want to be playing in the sixth match. So this comes like here's where the coach is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. That was a really great question. I love that so much. Kristen, thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for calling in with these questions. The chat has been incredible this show. The rest of these quarterfinal matches are going on the rest of today. So we have plenty more soccer to watch. Spain is playing Colombia right now. That game is 2-1 to Colombia with just minutes left. So we're going to let you all go catch the end of that in just a second. Canada is playing Germany at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then France are playing Brazil at 3 p.m. Eastern. This U.S. team is going to prepare for their semifinal game on Tuesday against the winner of that Canada-Germany game. And Brandi, I told Becky Sauerbrunn on our pregame podcast that I'm kind of hoping for an Olympics semifinal against Canada rematch for this team. I was there 3 years ago when Canada beat us, and I want this U.S. team to have their shot at revenge on our behalf. So, Brandi, who are you hoping for in our semifinal matchup? And can you just share some predictions for the rest of these games?
Yeah, I really would love the Canada game to happen. And I think more so because I think this Canada team had this massive issue happen to them.
Yeah.
And they want to show that they belong and that they're good enough, and to win an Olympic gold medal, you have to climb Mount Olympus. Yeah. You have to do that. And they've shown some resiliency that I'm not so sure some people thought that they'd be able to, because making up -6 points was nearly a death sentence.
Unbelievable.
So I think that would be really spectacular. We've talked about prior with our older teams about this revenge, how Norway beat us in 95 and we wanted to come back in 99. I'm not so sure I really believe in that kind of stuff, Sam, to be honest with you. I just think, every opportunity in front of you is a great challenge. And we've had to overcome some things. Canada's had to overcome some things. And I think because we are in the same CONCACAF, we're in the same region, we abut each other, we play together on teams. I think this would just be a freaking knockdown, drag out.
Yeah.
Brawl. and I would love to see the team that can command the game the best. And I feel like we're moving in that direction, and that's where we want to go. And so I would love for us to have a game that would cause us to say, we're not going to do that. We're going to get into this game. We're going to own you. We're going to manipulate you. We're going to take advantage of you, and we're going to make you hurt. And then when you're hurting, we're going to score goals behind you. And that would be, to me, a great semifinal.
Yeah. Well, I love it. We're going to find out today who we're playing in the semifinal. And we also have a semifinal preview podcast dropping on Monday with new bestie of the women's game, Dutch striker, who just signed with Manchester City, Vivian Miedema. I can't wait to pick Viv's brain about what she has thought of this whole tournament so far. So make sure you tune in to our YouTube channel or our podcast feed to hear that whole thing. That's dropping ahead of the semifinal. And then after the semifinal, I will be back here going live with Midge Purse to break down the results. Brandi, this was so awesome. I had so much fun with you here today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. I want to tell you that I have been a fan of yours from afar. And I think every fan who watched you play literally got a chance to see a legend in action. And you're doing a great job here, Sam. Thank you so much for elevating the conversation about women's soccer, about bringing it forward, about getting a lot of voices into the game. So way to keep doing your thing. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Brandi. That was so sweet. Everybody, make sure you're subscribed to this Women's Game YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our other content. All of our podcasts are available on here. We're dropping pregame podcast on Monday, like I said, with Viv Miedema. We're going live here again after the semifinal. You can follow along with us across all of our socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and even Threads at Women's Game MIB. Huge thanks again to Brandi. Thank you to all of our callers. I'm Sam Mewis. This is the Women's Game. Thanks for being here with us. Let's go watch Spain and Colombia.
Go Bay FC. Had to get it in there. I had to, Sam.